Hey gang, it is a cold winter's morning. We're in Paris, Texas, just northeast of Dallas-Fort Worth area. We're at Evergreen Cemetery. I gotta tell you, this is a tough one. I'm gonna give you a warning, especially later in the story. It's pretty graphic and it's pretty bad. It's the murder of little Myrtle Vance, daughter of the sheriff here back in the old days. I want to thank Lance for, I think Lance lives here, recommended the story. So we'll take a walk to her grave. There's a lot of old stones here to look at. But yeah, it happened here in this place, and it was the late 1800s, 1893. Now, sheriff here was Henry Vance. Henry had 3 children, wife. Daughter was 21-year-old Nancy, 15-year-old Buford, and little 3.5-year-old Myrtle. Now there was a man living here named Henry Smith with his wife. They say he was 17 years old, but Deb, our research shows that he was older, 27 years old. He was born in 1866. And we found that his wife, he was married. Her name was Susan Butler. Married February 25th, 1886. Now, Henry was a handyman here. He had a little bit of an unruly personality. The date was January 26, 1893, and Henry was seen acting drunk and disorderly. So Sheriff Vance was called and came to arrest him. But Smith was pretty unruly, and the sheriff had to use a club to subdue him. Just want to take a quick look here if we can read the inscription. Baby. A lot of statues here. Now, Henry Smith didn't like that. He got pretty enraged with that incident, and he said, "I'm going to have my revenge." So what he did was, he thought, how can I hurt this man, this sheriff that I despise? What's the worst thing I could do? Well, the children. So he goes to I think it was the house of the boarding house. It was it wasn't a boarding house, it was their house. Might have been a boarding house. He went right to the front porch, and Myrtle was there, I think, playing, 2.5 years old. And he just sweeps her up and carries her off. Now, this was seen by several witnesses there, including the mayor, and they're like, "Where are you going with the baby Myrtle?" "Oh, I'm taking her to her mother," or "I'm taking her to the doctor." He was saying, he's walking right past everybody. Well, what he did is he took her to a field, Gibson's Field it was called, and there he maybe did the unthinkable. We don't know for sure, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. Well, Henry came home the next morning, and his wife, she said, "What are you doing with that white girl?" He goes, "I didn't have no white girl. I've got nothing to do with white people." And then he ran out the door, and he left, and he left town. He was on the run. Well, the town, of course, went up in arms and they're looking for Myrtle, and it didn't take long for them to find her. She was in a pile of leaves, dead. And everyone knew who did it. And they were looking for him. And man, you can just imagine how they were going crazy and raged. The mob. Look at this grave. Look at this helmet. Wow. So Woodman of the World for sure. Now, those of you who are going to complain, why are you stopping and looking at these arbitrary graves? That's what we do here. We're a cemetery channel. We are not a crime documentary channel. If you want to see that, you can watch this story somewhere else where they just show pictures. Anyway, Henry Smith is on the run. They're looking for him. The doctors look at the child, the body, and they say she's been outraged. Now, outraged in those days meant rape. Unthinkable. Bloody underwear or undergarments. I mean, this has been argued by scholars that the doctors, and there were witnesses who swore there, who saw the body, and said she just had like a scrape to her face. So I guess we'll never know, but he did kill her. And I guess we just don't want to think about the rest. I mean, I can't think about it. It's outrageous. So he's on the run. Where does he go? He ends up near Fort Worth. He's been spotted. He's heading to the northwest now, or northeast, I should say. The railroad companies are offering free rides to anybody who is going to search, help in the manhunt. On January 31st, he was finally captured northeast, near his hometown. It was a place called Clow, Arkansas, about 40 miles north of the Texas border. And of course, the people from Paris, the men who were searching, they like swooped in very quickly to identify him. They stripped him down and they found his underwear. He had blood. Shirt was torn off. So they put him on the train back to Paris. Now the people, Texarkana was a stop. They wanted to lynch him right there, but there was just imagine the crowd and the mob, and then the Paris people, the men, no, we want to take him back to Paris. We've got a special surprise for him. So they agreed. The mob let him go. They're like, take him. Yeah. So they brought him back to Paris. And that is where, even given the crime, the unthinkable happened. It was, and I'm going to give you a warning. This is the most brutal instance that I think I've ever covered. And you know where it's going. It's going to be a lynching. But the way they did it here in Paris, it's hard to put into words. They had 10,000 people here, and they put them in a mule cart. We had onlookers coming here to Paris from Dallas, Fort Worth, Sherman, Denison, Bonham, Texarkana, Fort Smith, and all over. They paraded Henry Smith down the street to an open prairie between the cemetery here and the railroad tracks. His clothes were torn off piecemeal and scattered to the crowd. And of course, in those days, the crowd wanted their souvenirs. They were catching the shreds and putting them away as mementos. They built a 10-foot scaffold painted with the word justice. There are pictures. As the horror started to unfold, they put Henry Smith up there. Now, again, warning, this is really bad, guys. They tortured him. It was actually Henry Vance with his 15-year-old son and Vance's brother-in-law. The three men placed hot brands, iron brands, like branding cattle, under his feet, and then they hot branded him all the way up the trunk of his body, his chest. And that wasn't enough. They burned his eyes out, both of them. But that wasn't enough. They shoved it down his throat, but he was still alive. Now I'm going to read a little part of an article that was written February 2nd in the New York Sun, just to try to describe the scene. They said, finally the crowd poured coal oil, which is kerosene, over Smith, and then set the whole scaffold on fire. According to some accounts, Smith remained alive during the burning. After the rope bindings to the stake burned away, he fell off the scaffold and attempted to get away, but onlookers roped him like cattle and pulled him back into the flames. After the fire reduced Smith's body to a brittle cinder, members of the crowd sifted through the ashes to collect Smith's bones and shards of wood as souvenirs. On February 6th, the governor of Texas, Jim Hogg, referred to the lynching of Henry Smith as a terrible Holocaust and railed against mob violence in the state. On February 8th, the bullet-riddled body of Henry Smith's stepson, William Butler, was found hanging in a tree. They lynched him. What happened to his wife? We may never know. We may never know. Well, Myrtle's grave is just ahead here. Poor little baby. I don't know. I have mixed feelings. I mean, based on what he did, but man, how could you do that to anybody? Even the worst criminal. I'm sure if it were my own child, I might have different feelings. What do you guys think? What do you think? Really want to know. Well, here's her grave right here across this path. They have a beautiful statue here. Just imagine this cemetery, this where we're at here. This is how it was. All of these statues, many of them, were here when this happened, right? So Eugene here. Here's Eugene, died 1889. Here's Jenny Vance, died July 23rd, 1921. 69 years old. So it looks like there's just these four. And of course, little Myrtle Vance. And somebody has left flowers here, and there is a coin. Looks like a quarter. Beautiful statue. Beautiful marble statue, guys. Well, that's the story. That is the story of little Myrtle. You just imagine the father, the mother. Poor Henry, father, Vance, he would never get over it, understandably. He would remarry and take to alcohol. He had a heart attack. This angel statue was given by the children of the Paris Elementary School here in 1893, 1894. So this is not anything recent. This is the original, back from when this happened. A horrible event all the way around, guys. Hard story to tell, but it is a beautiful place, and I hope the family is resting in peace here. Rest in peace, little Myrtle and family. Rest in peace.